Hello and welcome to this quick training video for the P-51D Mustang in DCS World. I'm going to attempt to give you some pointers to taxi, take off, and land the P-51D. P-51 is definitely a little bit of a beast. He definitely earns the name Mustang. Should have been called the Bucking Bronco because it's a little bit a pain in the ass to fly, but it's fun once you get the hang of it. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and use the startup sequence, the auto start, because anybody can do it. It sets the plane up in the correct configuration for takeoff, and it's not a tutorial on how to start the P-51. So while that's going on, I want to say that one of the things that you want to make sure you have bound to a joystick button somewhere is your rudder trim. Being able to manipulate your rudder trim dial without having to look down at it is pretty much imperative to a decent 51 landing. You also, of course, want to make sure that you can move your elevator and aileron trims as well. All of those should be bound to your joystick button somewhere. The second thing that I'm going to talk about is during the taxi, the nose wheel steering, or the tail wheel steering, I should say. While you're driving around, if you pull the stick straight back and hold it there for a couple of seconds, once your plane has started moving in a straight line, the tail wheel locks in position, and it won't allow you to turn more than the wheel itself won't turn more than 6 degrees left or right, which allows for some pretty shallow turns, or steep turns, I guess. Turns where you don't have a very tight turning radius. To unlock the tail wheel, you push the stick forward of center, and the plane will whip around. So you want to make sure that you're not going very fast when you do that kind of a maneuver, otherwise you'll start doing donuts. And the way to get the plane back into a straight and not level, but a straight path on the taxiway is after the tail wheel has been unlocked and you've started turning, pull back on the stick again to engage the tail wheel lock. Keep pulling back on the stick until you're moving straight again, and the tail wheel will lock into a straight position, and then you don't have to fight the wheel brakes to taxi around. So the plane is ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. My RPM is all the way up. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my wing lights and tail lights. Also going to turn on my landing lights. So let's go ahead and start taxiing. Now, you'll notice the RPM is actually not all the way up, and that's because I haven't given any manifold pressure. I'm not opening the throttle at all. The RPM will gradually move up once the throttle is opened to a maximum of 3,000 RPM. I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little bit of manifold pressure here and try and maintain it around 20 until I start rolling. I'm going to drop it. Again, you don't want to move too fast while you're taxiing. Now here I'm coming up on a right-hand 90-degree turn. So I'm pushing my stick forward. I'm going to tap my right brake to get the wheel turn started. I'm going to pull back on the stick and tap my left brake to straighten the plane out. And once the plane is moving straight again, I can let go of my stick, and the plane will maintain a straight course. The tail wheel is locked. I've only got 6 degrees of play to either direction. So here I am at the threshold of the runway. I'm going to unlock my tail wheel again. A little bit of a left brake to spin around to the left. Pull back on the stick. A little bit of right brake just to straighten out. And here we are, set up on the runway. ready for takeoff. Now, when you give the plane, when you open the throttle up, the engine is so powerful that it tends to torque the plane around to the left a little bit. So the plane will actually start rolling and spinning slightly to the left while you're taking off. So in order to counteract that, move your rudder over to the right. I generally put it just shy of 5 degrees. It'll kind of balance the plane out, and you'll maintain a steady, straight line down the runway. So I've got my wing lights on, my landing light on. I'm going to go ahead and slowly increase the manifold pressure, slowly but smoothly. I get to about 45. Now the plane is going to kind of settle forward like this. Now right here, shy of 200, I'm going to pull back on the stick and take off. You'll notice the plane immediately kind of jerked to the right because I have my rudder trimmed. I'm actually going to trim the rudder back a little bit, not all the way. And I'm going to raise my gear. Now the indication of slip indicator. My plane is actually sliding through the air slightly at the moment. If you notice, it's kind of almost strafing a little bit to the right. I'm not flying straight. You'll notice that I'm slightly kind of flat spinning over to the right. And that is indicated by that little ball on the bottom of that indicator. Don't worry about the vertical. The vertical just tells me whether I'm banking my wings to one direction or the other. The ball is indicating whether my plane whether it has any horizontal movement in the air, and it does. I'm sliding a little bit to the right, and if you think about that ball as the feeling that you feel when you're in a car, you turn to the right, you always feel like you're being kind of pushed to the left a little bit. Well, that's why that ball is sliding over to the left. The cool thing about that is that it makes it really easy to adjust. Ball's over to the left. I'm going to trim my rudder to the left until the ball moves back to center. So I'm giving myself left rudder trim just until I can get the ball centered, and I'm good. Now I'm flying straight. Now that I've got my rudder trimmed, I'm going to go ahead and trim the rest of my aircraft. Elevator, ailerons, try and maintain straight and level flight. Now I'm going to turn away from the blank horizon of the sea because it's a little bit easier to tell when you're flying straight and level when you have a reference point, like a mountain. Now one of the most important gauges in the P-51 is the climb indicator, and they put it at the very bottom of the front panel, which is kind of a stupid mistake in my opinion of the design of the cockpit, but that's not the fault of the game. This is the fault of the engineers back in the day when they designed the 51 cockpit. Now, I'm also going to scale my manifold pressure back into the green zone. Now one of the things with the P-51 is every time you change the manifold pressure, every time you change the throttle, you're going to want to retrim the aircraft because it's not going to have the same flight characteristics after you change torque on the engine. Since this isn't a jet engine, I'm It's basically like driving a car engine. A lot of cars like to pull to the left. This plane likes to pull to the left. Every time you change the amount of torque that the engine is delivering, you are going to want to trim it. Right now I'm not even touching my control surface. My hand is not even on my joystick at the moment. And you'll notice that the plane is slightly rolling to the right. I can just counteract it with a little bit of stick. And pretty much maintain level flight. I'm not touching the stick again. And I can actually trim that out. Just tapped my trim button. And I'm not touching the stick at all. This is the advantage of trim. Not having to fight your controls to maintain straight and level flight. Notice that I'm starting to slip a little bit again. I'm going to go ahead and trim out the slip. And there we go. So we've taken off, we're flying around. Let's say we wanted to go in for a landing. First thing you want to do, first thing I do, is zoom my view out so that I can see all of my gauges on the front console. The most important two gauges for landing are your slip indicator, your climb indicator. The other ones are okay. I mean, yeah, they help you, but you don't really need to look at them all that much. Except maybe your airspeed, manifold pressure, and all of that. I generally ignore them, to be honest with you. I go by sound and speed. Give it a little bit more throttle if you're going too slow. Give it a little less throttle if you're going too fast. That's pretty self-explanatory. You really want to keep an eye on your slip indicator, because it is essential that you are trimmed to center. You want to maintain a proper straight landing. If you're slipping either direction in any way, the plane is never going to stay lined up with the runway. As you're coming into a land, the plane will actually slide to the right or the left, depending on where your slip indicator is. So you really, really want to maintain that thing in the center. That is like the number one most important thing that you want to keep your eye on. Second most important thing you want to keep your eye on is the climb indicator, because you don't want to be descending too quickly, and you don't want to be climbing while you're trying to come in for a landing. You want to maintain a steady descent, generally of about 3 degrees. You want to try and keep it around right there for a proper soft landing. It's really difficult to do. And it's even harder to do if you're zoomed in too close. Like if you're here, you can't see what you're doing. You have to look down. Well, now you've lost your view of the runway, and now you've lost your view of the climb indicator. So you really want to zoom out so that you can see everything. You don't need to zoom way out like this, because that's now everything's distorted. You just want to make sure that at a moment's notice you can look at any of your gauges and know what's going on with your aircraft. Past the runway, I'm going to go ahead and turn around. I'm going to drop my RPM about 2,500 RPM. I know the training tutorial says drop your RPM to 27. I think 25 is a little bit more stable. I'm also going to drop my manifold pressure to about 26, 27. And in doing that, I'm going to make sure that my rudder is trimmed center. Also going to retrim my flight surfaces, ailerons, elevator, all of that. There's the runway. I'm still going a little bit fast, so I'm going to drop my manifold pressure significantly. And make sure that my climb rate, the rate of descent, is actually not too steep. I'm going to take my time out here and get a proper approach speed rather than trying to do it on the approach, because that is never a good idea. Most of the time you will end up overcorrecting or undercorrecting, and you just never have a good landing that way. So I'm going to take the time out here while I'm waiting. You can also fly the pattern if you want. I'm lazy at the moment and don't want to take that time, so I'm just going to fly zigzag. Try and get my speed down. Okay, my speed is about right. I'm going to go ahead and increase my manifold pressure to try and maintain this speed. I'm going about 170. Keeping my eye on my climb indicator here. Descent, rate of descent, because I want to make sure that I'm not gaining too much altitude or dropping too fast. I'm also using my rudder pedals to try and my slip centered. Okay. So here we are, we're just about 200 miles an hour. Drop my manifold pressure just a little bit more. And at this point I'm going to drop 2 stages of flaps. That'll help slow me down. It'll also give me a slightly better angle of attack. And now my speed is dropping below 170. I'm going to drop my gear. That should slow me down significantly. I'm going to make sure that my slip indicator is centered. At this point right here, this is a pretty perfect approach. Going down slowly, still got enough airspeed to keep myself flying. I'm not close to stall speed yet. My rate of descent is a little bit steep at the moment, but I'm trying to do a bunch of things at once, so not surprising. My slip indicator is pretty much centered, which is exactly what you want on an approach. It just means that your plane is not going to slide off of your the line that you've set up for you. So I'm good. I'm actually going to lower my flaps all the way down here. I'm going to give myself a little bit more throttle just to maintain my approach. I'm also going to trim out my rudder again. It's starting to slip a little bit to the starting to slip a little left again. Notice my climb, I'm dropping it just about 4 meters a second. The speed is getting to right around 120, which is perfect for approach. Give myself more manifold pressure to try and maintain that. As I do that, my rudder needs to be trimmed again. So here we go. This is a perfect approach setup for P-51. Keeping an eye on my climb, keeping an eye on my rudder, trimming it as I need to. I'm not sliding to one side or the other. I really don't have to do much with my controls. Constantly trimming as I change speed. drop my manifold pressure just a little bit because I'm starting to go a little bit fast. I'm gonna counter that rudder. Down at a good rate. Speed even more on my rudder. Going straight. I'm gonna actually lose the runway just here in a second. Try this again. Slight flare. Drop my manifold pressure all the way. Touchdown. I'm gonna pull back on the stick. Make sure that my tail wheel is locked. Now I'm going to center the stick because I don't need it anymore. Tail wheel's locked, it's not going to unlock. And I am not braking, I'm just letting the plane stop itself, basically. Got my manifold pressure all the way down. And I've got my RPM. I've actually raised it all the way back up again so that I can taxi it once I've hit a taxiway. Should be coming up here pretty soon. Still haven't touched my wheel brakes yet. I'm actually going a little too slow. I don't know that I'm going to hit the next taxiway exit. I'm going to go ahead and start zigzagging so I can see where I'm going. Looks like it's going to be all the way at the other end of the runway, which is fine. Oh, now there's one coming up right here. So I am still have my tail wheel locked. I'm going to try and make this turn, but I don't think well, I might. Nope. Unlock my tail wheel real quick. A little bit of left to stop the turn. Left wheel brake. Go back, lock the tail wheel. Here we go with another one. Lock the tail wheel. A little bit of right wheel brake to stop that left turn. Just continue down the taxiway. Now I'm leaving my flaps down because you power down the aircraft, or when you do the shutdown sequence, you're supposed to drop the flaps. And in real life, it's so that you don't step on them and bend them, keeping them down. You get into the aircraft on the wing, and this gives you a solid surface to stand on rather than a control surface, which would be unwise to step on a control surface. I'm going to go ahead and pull into my parking spot here. I'm going to pull over here to the right-hand side of it. Unlock my tail wheel and spin around. Right wheel brake and lock my tail wheel. And wheel brakes. Oh, there you go. That's how you start, taxi, take off. Didn't didn't fly a pattern, but flew around, set ourselves up for a landing, came in and landed. And it does take quite a bit of practice. I have some landings that are gorgeous like this, and I have some landings that are almost embarrassing. And I have some landings where I just crash. I bounce off the runway, and for some reason, just wasn't feeling it that day, I guess. Again, the most important gauges, in my opinion, are the climb indicator and the slip indicator. You want to make sure that your slip is non-existent, and you want to make sure that your climb is a steady but slow rate of descent. Keep your RPM around 2500, and your manifold pressure just manipulate it as you need to keep your speed at where you want it to be set at. That's pretty much it. Drop your flaps all the way once you're set up on your approach, and then just maintain your manifold pressure and your rudder trim. If you have rudder pedals, you can use them. I actually find trimming it to be a little bit more, a little bit less jerky. My rudder pedals tend to make the aircraft kind of wobble through the air, and I think that's a little bit unsafe. So I'm going to use right Windows key and end to do the shutdown sequence, and that'll be the end of the video. Hope it helped. Get up there and give it some practice. Definitely takes a few tries before you'll have it down